I'm Daz from Daz Talks Footy. You're watching the Centre Bounce.
Nice. Hey Daz, how you doing?
Mate, I'm going well. Looking forward to a Supercoach chat as always. We've had some struggles getting here, but we're here now, and hopefully the conversation is an insightful one, and I'm looking forward to it. How are you?
I'm doing really good. The Supercoach gods must be looking down on us favourably because we've actually got the recording working right now. So yeah, no, it's pretty good so far.
And name a more iconic duo than me in technical difficulties. Goodness me, I've had a few of them in the content creation journey, but we're here now, mate. Looking forward to getting stuck into it.
No, definitely true. So just for the viewers who haven't seen your channel and seen your stuff before, do you want to just introduce yourself, kind of what you do and who you follow in AFL?
Yeah, so I started making content in October or November. Geez, that's good memory. But yeah, I'm not just a Supercoach channel, so I'm a regular footy channel as well. So when I'm not doing Supercoach videos, I'm trying to look at footy in sort of ways that not a lot of people are, whether it's on YouTube or mainstream media or anything like that. I believe in getting a lot of footy content out there, and not only that, but making it easy pieces for people to not only watch, listen to, but comment on as well. So trying to build a good footy community there. So if you're looking for stuff that is Supercoach and non-Supercoach related, I feel like my channel is the place to go. And if you're not already subscribed to the Centre Bounce, we should all be doing so. And if you could give my channel a subscribe as well, I would really appreciate that. And yeah, from there, man, it'll be once the season starts proper, it'll become maybe a bit more structured timeline-wise. But until then, just trying to get content out as much as I can, and fingers crossed people can enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll put the link to your channel down in the description as well, so they can come quickly, access your stuff from there. So
beautiful. Appreciate that.
So just talking a little bit Supercoach wise, how did you go last year, and what were some up and downs that you had? Some good things happening and some bad things happening.
I feel all of my ups were, I think, completed around round 15 or 16, where I was about 470th. I probably should have checked that before we jumped on, but around that time, and I just thought, geez, one final push and I'm going to be in the upper echelon, and then things just went sour. I can't remember specifically, trades and stuff that happened, but premiums would just happily. Darcy Parish at the end of the year sort of killed me a little bit as his breakout season was coming to a close. But yeah, I ended up around about 8,000th, which at the start of the year I probably would have taken. I had a really horrific 2020. So if someone had said you'll be around that mark, I would have said awesome. But yeah, the end of the year didn't suit me well, and I was probably a bit ill-disciplined with trades and stuff like that. So having Supercoach content will hopefully make me a bit more accountable. Definitely will be, especially with so many leagues I've got running at the moment. So I believe that I can go pretty far in this caper. I like my knowledge of footy, and hopefully it can continue onward. So a poor ending to the year, but a fantastic start. So hopefully I can continue next year.
Nice. Hey, at least you didn't start Dom Tyson, so that's something there.
No, I can't say that I started Dom Tyson.
I definitely did.
Well, boy. But yeah, I can almost top that because, starting someone, you can fix that mistake, but making a mistake 23 rounds in a row is pretty rare. I didn't have Rory Laird at all. Which is not something that I'm proud of. And all of the comments that are ripping me for that are 100% justified. So I'm not doing it again this year. Jack Crisp is not leaving my side unless he does an injury, which, knock on wood that he doesn't do so. But that was a low moment.
Yeah, Rory Laird last year kind of hurts, especially being his breakout year. I don't think many people are going to pick him this year, but, what can you do?
That's it.
Yeah. So just some, can you give me a couple of good picks you had throughout the year and some bad things that you wish you hadn't have done?
He'll kill me if I don't give him the credit for this, but my mate Smithy, who I did my Supercoach draft content with, fantastic footy brain as well, doesn't have a YouTube channel, but I'll hopefully be bringing him on more and more throughout the year. Converted me onto the Jack Zeeble train. I remember we were having a kick, and I said to him, I'll give you $10 for every ton that he gets, and I won't have to open the wallet. Fair to say that backfired. Yeah, so I have to give him credit for that, but I got on Aaron Hall reasonably quickly. So I'll give myself a little bit of a pat on the back for that. And I think I got on Jimmy Jordan pretty early as well. So for a rookie, got on there as well. So a few shrewd picks there, but definitely towards the end of the year, if I dissected some trades, I would have looked, not that great. I don't think I started Danger last year, but look, probably did. No, on my luck. So yeah, but I'll take credit for Aaron Hall there. Absolutely.
No, definitely. How many of those obviously last year mid prices in the forward line were a bit of an anomaly, you know what I mean? How many of those players did you start? You know, your Impey, Jack Zeeble, Danaher, Tex, those kind of players.
Yeah, Jarman and Jack had them all year, didn't have Tex. The idea, or Danaher, I do not like tall forwards in Supercoach at all. It's, you know, might be a bit discriminatory, but there's just something about not seeing a bloke kick a snag for 3/4 and he scores on 29 that just really takes the fun out of Supercoach and just inserts a level of anger that that my beautiful partner doesn't deserve. If she's watching a neutral game with me, she's a good Richmond girl. There's plenty of not so good Richmond. No, I'm just kidding. They're wonderful people. But yeah, so she can get a bit serious. But yeah, I didn't start with any of those talls. But yeah, Jarman Impey and Jack Zeeble were in my side and didn't leave. I don't think Jack left all year, and when Jars got injured, he was out straight away and was a beautiful cash cow for me.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely seems like, especially last year and definitely this year, jumping on the right mid prices, especially from the start, is really going to set up your season. There's definitely a few there in the forward line, in other positions as well, but definitely in the forward line where maybe the top 6 to 8 aren't as locked in as some people like to think. There's definitely some money to be made there. So,
yeah, there definitely is. And cash generation is only getting more and more important as the more Supercoach seasons go. And especially in a COVID-ravaged world, which we are at, the more money that you can store up and then, you know, fill out a premium team around the buys or just post the buys is going to be uber important so you can come home with a wet sail, which I didn't do last year, and I'm more than comfortable enough in my ability to hopefully do so this year. I say hopefully with a heart full of hope.
So just speaking about the changes happening this year. So obviously we've got quite a few new changes happening with Supercoach, you know, players getting DPP, extra trades, trade boosts, that kind of thing. Were you one of the people that kind of looked at, you know, 12:10 at midnight when Supercoach opened, hey, these are the new things that are happening? Or how did you kind of react to those changes?
Yeah, well, first of all, I apologise for the cough. I've been a bit crook over the weekend. So, but yeah, DPP, I'll start with the 35. I read 35 trades, and if I wasn't currently renting and had a skinny hallway, I would have done cartwheels down them because I am a notorious ill-disciplined trader when it comes to Supercoach, and I'm hoping that having Supercoach content on the channel is going to keep me way more accountable. Fingers crossed, especially with, you know, the amount of leagues that I'm running. So 35 trades to me sounds awesome. We've got a COVID-ravaged world. It'll help the buys. Like having 12 trades across the buy period is just outstanding and something that I'm really looking forward to having. And, you know, there's a case to be made if we didn't have a COVID-ravaged world, we'd only have the 30. So I don't know, do we use COVID as a positive here? Probably not. But yeah, I think if we get a bit of luck along the way, I feel like people are going to fill their sides with premiums probably quicker. But riding the wave of hoping your players don't get COVID is going to be one that fills Supercoaches with plenty of anxiety, I expect. But the DPP is a really interesting one. So you look at guys like Christian Petrarca as the example that I love to use. This man kicked 30 goals in the home and away season last year, didn't get forward status. So I think if we call our jets on, you know, Petrarca, Bontempelli, Fife, these guys, just wait and see. They might become round 12, round 18 DPPs, but it does create a new, you know, bubble, I suppose. We're used to cash generation bubbles with the rookies. Of course, if they're on the bubble, having played 2 games and we can get them in and all that, maybe getting a Pendlebury in at the end of round 5 and having him in your defense, especially if we're struggling for rookies, you know, with a Campbell Chesser going down during the Pracky games, which we'll talk about. So it brings in an element that maybe we should have had previously, but I'm not a fan of going, you know, I should have had that. We've got it now, which is fantastic. It probably adds a level of theatre and makes Supercoach an even bigger game of chess than it already is, and will definitely separate the good from the great from maybe the not so good in Supercoach this year. So I'm all for change if it can happen, and the players that adapt better are going to do better, which is probably a statement that makes a lot of people go, oh, really? Well, yeah, sometimes it really can be that simple. So I'm looking forward to it more than anything else.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've definitely noticed over the last couple of years, maybe not so much in the midfield, but definitely forward and defence, was, you know, come the bye rounds, basically everyone's got the same players. Yeah. So I think adding that extra DPP gives that flexibility and kind of changes things up a little bit, because no one wants the same 6 players or so. And the potential for those midfield premiums to come in and, you know, and get that forward status kind of opens that up a little bit. I agree with you. I think last year in fantasy, they only had two relevant players in Darcy and Kelly that got forward DPP status. But we may see a few more of those type of players come in now. I know from the preseason games, Bont maybe got a couple of forward bounces when the centre bounce happened, but we'll just wait and see what happens. I'm hoping we may get a couple of extra ruckmen with DPP. Maybe your Jackson or your Gawn or a couple of, maybe even Goldstein, sharing ruck duties, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Geez, imagine Gawn as F1.
He'd be great.
Absolutely.
It's almost like Dangerfield from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or Insta Lock, just got to play. I agree with what you're saying. Changes are really good. I think the majority of change is actually going to happen in round 6, just because the sample size is so big come round 12 and round 18. Yeah. If a player's out at the start of the year, that kind of thing, it's a lot easier to get DPP. Whereas, instead of needing 6 games worth of 35, round 12 is 12 games. And then round 18 is 18 games. So maybe some rookies will get changes, but premiums, I think, are probably done after round 6.
Yeah, absolutely. And round 12 is the beginning of the bye. So you're probably going, I need to get through the buys. And then once the buys finish, which I think is round 14, you've only then got 3 rounds until the round 18 DPPs come in. So there's probably an argument there. Unless you're using it to manipulate your buys, you're probably not even worrying about the round 12 DPPs. But if you're using them to manipulate your buys and get 18 on field, by all means, they could be the greatest savior in the world. But if you've got a buy structure by round 7 or round 8 that you're really comfortable with, and ignoring the DPPs, waiting for the round 18 list, and then, filling up with potentially premiums or, downgrading to rookies who might get DPP as well later on in the year, you look at like a Greg Clark, who midfield probably, but once, all these West Coast guys come together, where do these guys rest? You can't rest on the bench the whole time. Midfielders, they like to go to a half-forward flank. Hello, Darcy Parish, if you're listening. First 4 years of your career, he was spent there. So we're probably going to get these guys later on in the year just to help us out, a downgrade here, to upgrade, more times with the trade boost as well. So I'm all for it. I understand people that can be a bit on edge about it. Let me tell you, by the end of round 5, I don't think there'll be anyone complaining.
No, I think everyone's going to be looking for them and just being like, where's my DPPs? I want them now.
Yeah, and whoever it is, whether it's a Josh Kelly or a Bont or a Petrarca, if they're hitting, is the threshold 30 or 35%? Do you know off the top of your head?
In fantasy, it's 35. I don't think it's actually been talked about as a number in Supercoach, but I assume they're just going to run off what it is in fantasy.
I think, because I remember they say Josh Kelly last year was 28, which was close. So I think it's 30 or 35. But if it is 30, for example, imagine if we get to the end of round 5 and Bont's at like 28.5%. People are going to riot. But it makes the game more fun, so I'm all for it.
No, of course. So just speaking about your team last year, you were saying that basically you were mostly done by round 15.
Yeah.
Did you find it hard with the additional trades? Obviously, with COVID, we went from 30 to 35. Did you find it hard to finish your team, or was it kind of just bad decisions that stopped your season or didn't allow you to do trades later on during the year?
Well, I think the easiest way to answer that question is I ran out of trade. I think I had one trade when round 18 finished. So that's on me. So as much as I'd love to blame COVID, as we have for most things in the last 2 years, it was ill discipline on my part. And, as much as I'd love to celebrate that, that peak, no one gives a stuff about your ranking in round 16. It's where you finish at the end of the year that counts. So, I'm 100% putting that on myself there and hoping that the 35 is going to be well spent. I think after round 1, I had to trade Rowell and Dangerfield just straight up last year after the injury and the suspension when Danger got Jake Kelly, I think it was. So that was already a poor start, and it probably got worse from there trade wise. So I went probably a bit too hard too early. So I'll put it on me. Yeah, I know definitely. I spent 6 trades by the end of round 3, so it really hurt. Those injuries at the start of the year were just terrible. Rowell went down, Dangerfield, like you say, Dunkley by, I think, round 5 or 6 was gone as well. So, you kind of forced into it a little bit. How influential do you think the trade boosts are going to be? Obviously, with people being able to have the flexibility to trade multiple people, but also finish their teams a lot earlier. Yeah. Do you reckon we'll get a few people who are just going to burn the trade boosts early and get a full premium even before the buy rounds? Look, if you can get 20 premiums, because if you look at it if you use the 5, we'll do the calculation by it. So we've got 23 rounds, 5 boosts. So you're using one a month, essentially, one every 4 weeks. So if you're sort of using a couple of those earlier, you might be able to fill your team earlier, and that's fantastic to you. Stephen May was under 400 grand after about round 13. Andy Brayshaw was under 500K at round, I think, 12 or 13 or 14. If you're filling your team uber premium earlier, I mean, good luck to you. But I feel like having, I know that you got to make up points. And if you're playing for ranking overall, you're probably looking at, if I can sneak a trade here or there, I mean, go for it. But at the end of the day, I think what the 35s told us is that COVID could ravage the competition and we're not getting any more. So I am very much in the, I need to stockpile not only trades, but the money as well. And then make better use of it, use of the break evens, better use of the price projections and all these sorts of things. So I feel like for the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, all that's going to keep a player of mine from getting traded is an injury. I think that's the way we've got to look at it, or maybe getting the rookies 100% right. If I've got a rookie, people out there, I know Sam Butler, I think's in 16% of teams. I don't think he's close to a Hawthorn debut yet, although he looks like he's going to be a gun. So if he's on your team, mid-forward, he's got the DPP. If you're at the end of round 2, he hasn't played yet, but there are rookies on the bubble, you haven't jumped off, of course you're going to make that trade. And do you use a trade boost to get as many rookies? You absolutely should. I'm not telling you to stockpile all of your trades, but I don't think there's going to be a perfect answer. We could hit the top 5 at the end of year rankings. We'll have 5 different strategies. I'm almost sure of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to get a few times as well. I know last year and the years before, we've had to kind of weigh up, do I double downgrade this week? Do I go 1 up, 1 down, that kind of thing? And grabbing those guys at the appropriate price, top of the graph before they start dropping in price with the rookies. So maybe we'll get a few times, instead of having to pick, we can do both. I think that's going to help quite a lot. Speaking of what you were saying, Brayshaw and Stephen May, I think it was the buy rounds where Tom Mitchell was sub 500.
Oh, yeah.
Or was just hitting 500K. And then he went massive for the rest of it. So being able to pick up those players as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last year we had, those extra trades given to us. I think this year it seems like they're not going to do that. They're just saying, here's 35, deal with it for the rest of the year.
Yep.
So like you were saying, no surprises. I think BBL happening at the moment, or just, it's just finished. They had to kind of think on the fly. Whereas Supercoach, they're just like, here you go, just deal with it for the rest of the season. So, just something to look out for a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I gave up on the BBL Supercoach, and it wasn't Supercoach's fault, it wasn't the BBL's fault. Life got in the way, decisions had to be made. So as someone who's, probably just 1% less a cricket tragic than I am a footy tragic, I just had to sit back and watch the BBL as much as I could. Although I'm a much bigger fan of Test cricket. But yeah, Harold Sunwell, Supercoach, are telling us, hey, this is the plan for the start of the year. There's 50 grand on the line. There's the new trophy, which looks massive and looks amazing. If you can have that on your mantelpiece, you are going to bloody deserve it, which I can't wait for.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully it fits, on my shelf over there. So we'll see how it goes.
I've had the chat with my partner, Sam, who's got a team herself. And let me tell you, if she outranks me this year in Classic, I might need to rent somewhere else. So if anyone's got a spare room around October, I would love to know. Distance is no boundary. It doesn't matter where. If you're watching this in South Australia, I'm more than happy to cross the border because she's not going to let it go, rightly so. So we'll see how we go.
How many weeks were we looking at?
In the move?
No. How many weeks, out of home, do we have to save up the room for?
No, all of them. Yeah, I'm not going back. Yeah, no.
No, you're not coming back. Just
permanent exile, yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Which will be good.
No. So just speaking about the preseason games, obviously that's what we're talking about today. What's something that you look for in particular when analysing the preseason games?
Time on ground's been a big one for me. Because you're looking at guys like who's fully fit. I think that's the thing we're looking for. We've talked about midfielders, forwards, with maybe that forward mid tag, the DPPs, the mid price guys, and we'll talk about all of them, I'm sure. Just how much time are they spending on the ground? I don't think Supercoach points at this time, especially during the pracky matches, because they're getting sort of analysed manually. So you're never going to get a perfect algorithm by hand unless we've got, uber geniuses out there. And I'm sure the guys at Champion Data are exactly that. I've no doubt about that at all. But time on ground, something that I've monitored pretty well. And especially with the games that have had these 6 quarters, Are there any relevant players? And there's a GWS ruckman that fits this mold absolutely beautifully, who's not being played in the first 2 or 3 periods, they were calling them, and coming on in the fourth. And there is a 200k GWS ruckman that came on in the fourth period that instantly got him out of my team.
I think I know who you're talking about there.
Yeah, it was concerning, but we'll get into that.
It's kind of tough sometimes to weigh up. I know that a few of the premiums got rested in the third and fourth quarters, that kind of thing, or, you know, they don't take it as seriously because it is the preseason games. So it's pretty hard to analyze with that. I think for me, definitely it's kind of picking up what their players' role is on field as well. Not necessarily how, you know, if they play the 4 quarters out of 6 or whatever, but when they play, where do they line up or what? I think there's definitely quite a few guys in the forward line that are potentially coming off injury and they're getting managed a little bit. So it's kind of balancing that as well.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And then I was at Morwell to watch Hawthorn and Collingwood, and I saw Connor Nash directing Tom Mitchell out of stoppages. So don't take their role 100% seriously. Keep an eye on it, but don't overreact to it, because if we line up against North in round 1 and Connor Nash is directing Tom Mitchell out of stoppages, I'll buy him the plane ticket back to Ireland, because that ain't happening.
Yeah, Sam Mitchell's up for a review already. You reckon?
Goodness me, that'd be good. Hodgie can take over for him. We'll just get a long line of champions down the line, which would be interesting.
So how much do you weigh up, let's say, a Kadeen Coleman from Brisbane, who's had a lot of hype behind him throughout the preseason, but doesn't play? How do you kind of weigh up those if I'm going to put him in your team?
Well, I mean, the simplest way is, can I rely on this guy to make me money after round 4? That's it. And if I think he's at 287k.
I think he's a bit cheaper.
Keaton, a bit cheaper. Okay.
Yeah. I think
he's like under 300 for sure. So
definitely.
Yeah, is this guy going to be? Am I going to be able to trade him at 450k circa Chankwath Giath last year? And if the answer is anything apart from a absolutely, I'm not having him. Not yet. Okay. There might be more to prove, and he's one of those. And there's plenty up forward, especially a number 1 pick from Brisbane, who I'm in exactly the same boat. If I can't trust the fact that I'm going to be able to either trade you circa 400, 450k or keep you in the team all year, I don't think I can start with you yet. And that's sort of where I'm at with those kind of guys. What about yourself?
I think I take into account a little bit of the trading stuff. So just kind of like what you're saying about, do I think they're going to make enough money? But also, if you look at, who was it? Kadeen Coleman, definitely. He was out with COVID. So he was a close contact with COVID. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily he was injured or they're trying to rest him or anything like that. Just stuff you can't control.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of have to weigh up a little bit of that as well. I know some people will maybe get trialed in the preseason pracky game that happened this week, but maybe won't play in the actual preseason game next week. So it's kind of just weighing up a little bit what the coaches think. Preseason information is definitely really important as well. So yeah, just kind of figuring that stuff out.
Yeah, I think the key is to react, but don't overreact, whether it's the result, whether it's Supercoach wise or anything like that. And we should know our seniors both got smacked in the pracky game. So if you can react to it but not overreact to it, I think you're a step ahead of those that are jumping the gun.
You clearly don't look at the big footy forums then, because there's a lot of people overreacting on there.
I look at them. I don't respond to them. And let me tell you, that's mental health 101 out there. Oh, boy.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing too, kind of, you've got your preseason wonders as well. So I think Dom Tyson definitely sucked me in last year. There was a bit of a position for him. It obviously didn't work out, but those guys you don't really hear about much of, and then they come out and score like 100 in the preseason game. So there's definitely those guys who perform really well. They take it really seriously. And those premiums and those other players that are just like, yeah, I want to have a game. You know, I'm playing 4 quarters. Let's just run around and kick the footy. So you kind of have to weigh that up as well.
Yeah. And there haven't been, well, from the pracky game scores that I've seen, there haven't really been any, really, that guy got that score. And I know a lot of people are talking about Andrew McPherson, but his 126, I think he was the only Crow to ton up. I don't think anyone was looking at Andy Mack beforehand. I don't think they're going to look at him now. But at the end of the day, that 126, good luck to the lad. If he gets to the Marsh Community Series game and he churns out another 120, then he's just putting himself in the conversation, which is all we can ask for players to do, which is fantastic. The harder the decisions are, the more rewarding that 50K is going to be at the end of the year, or the grand final victory if you're a league player. So bring it on.
Yeah, definitely. And there's also those kind of players as well, you know, I don't know if Andy McGrath, I don't think he was as affected with people out, but there's players who may perform a role on field and then a premium comes back and kind of takes their role in the regular season games as well. So it's kind of hard to kind of weigh up those players. Obviously, analysis like you've been doing every week or every 3 days of each team, looking at, who's come in, who's come out. Those type of players definitely you have to kind of look at. Does Hawks need midfielders? Okay, you can look at the Hawks midfielders who's getting time and make an accurate decision on are they going to play well during the regular season. But those kind of analysis there really definitely weigh things up for me.
Absolutely. And I'm really proud of my Supercoach previews, and I still think 90% of them are massively relevant. I know it's weird for a content creator to say don't watch something, but there's a few of those West Coast takes that have aged badly because they've got more injuries than I've had hot dinners, which is insane. So I do apologize for the West Coast fans that think I jinxed them. I probably did. I don't know how, but I probably did. So, but yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with getting as much content, as you can and as much information as you can. I genuinely believe that I should probably do a video on this, but I'll tell you anyway, that if you took the grand finalists out, because they've had the least amount of preseason, that's 16 teams, make the preseason competition competitive, and then have Melbourne and the Bulldogs play a pracky game the weekend after the preseason grand final. And then everyone's had a build up. You can go from there and then you can launch into the preseason. That would be awesome. You could play it all throughout Feb, do the pracky game in the first week of March, and round one is the third week of March, and you can just go from there. I'm a big advocate for that. Pracky games is all if, buts, and nowhere. You'd find out which teams are taking it seriously. We'd still find out Supercoach information, which is gold. And it would get, I think, even bigger crowds to these stadiums. Like the Wizard Cup growing up was awesome. Grant Thomas didn't think so if he saw his reaction to winning it in 04, but I think it was fantastic. I think we need to bring it back. But the more Supercoach information you can get, the better.
Yeah, definitely. I think the NAB League, I remember a couple of years ago when they used to play 3 games, not even like the tournament style, but just playing more than one game.
Yeah,
definitely helped teams go in, because you've got those teams that kind of North working out their game plan versus other teams who know what they're going to do and actually just practicing for round one as well. So having that extra information there, obviously Supercoach relevant, makes a big difference, because I think you're going to see a lot of teams in this round of preseason games. Teams could kind of make up what they wanted to do, 4 to 6 quarters, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas next week, I think it is literally just going to be, we're practicing an AFL game. We're playing 4 quarters, 30 minutes with time on, and just going from there. So, yeah, there's going to be a big difference, I guess, with the teams and working out, the structures and things like that are actually going to be a lot different. I know North, for example, obviously North supporter, so I can talk about them. But we played a lot of players who will be mostly VFL for the whole year in our game against Melbourne last week. So they're not going to be Supercoach relevant. They're not going to affect the guys, but more North players might actually be doing well Supercoach-wise next week than comparatively what they did this week against Melbourne. So, yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah, definitely. So just going over the specific games that we had this week, let's just kind of go through the list of them, and we'll talk about a few plays each. I don't know if you were saying you've watched a lot of the games. So just kind of going through, let's say 3 or 4 plays each that we got impressed by, some things maybe that weren't impressive, or things that kind of shocked us that way.
Yep,
so first up, we have Essendon and Western Bulldogs.
Yeah, well, weirdly enough, this was probably the most enjoyable game for me to watch as a footy fan, which which is weird because it was the first game. So I was kind of like, I hope they're as good. They probably weren't. The first big tick for me was Zach Merritt. How is this man a pod? Seriously. He's still that much of a pod. He ain't in my team right now. So I'm as big a hypocrite as everyone out there going, well, I don't have him. But he just walks onto the park with 100, and then he just garnishes it with however many bonus points that he can get, which is outstanding. Sorry, huge tick to Zachy Boy. Darcy Parish as well looked like he hadn't skipped a beat, but he didn't get tagged. So I'm still looking at guys that, Darcy can find the footy. I mean, he won more medals than Melbourne players did last year. They just happened to win one that was more important. Yeah. So they're the 2 big ticks for mine. What did you think of Andy McGrath on a halfback flank, by the way? Do you think he could be a DPP option, or are we just going, because I love the man. So I'm a big fan. If he becomes a mid-def by round 6, that's tempting.
He's someone to look at. I think it really hurts someone like Ridley scoring just because there's another person down back. I know we halfway through the season last year, Heppel came back and there was that extra ball sharing from him. McGrath himself, he looked really good. So just kind of watching how he was playing, he looked really good, really comfortable, seems to have that kind of dash off the halfback, similar to, people will hate me for it, but similar to like how Assad kind of had that run off the halfback. He was definitely used a lot of transitioning and things like that. I saw from the rotations, I think he played more mid, but there was a significant time in the halfback line. There's been reports during the preseason that he was getting trained or they were practicing with him in that position, similarly to a Zach Merritt. I think he played a tiny bit off halfback as well. But I think teams definitely, I know Brisbane's done it, I know North's kind of done it, but teams are definitely looking at playing more premium, really good ball users from that position, just from how dominant that position is on field. Just kind of the distributor, because you win from your defense, basically. If the ball comes out of your defense, easy transitions, you get people out of position and then they win that way. So he looks really good. It was a bit surprising, but we'll just wait and see what happens DPP-wise. There is a lot of ball to be shared around that back line. So McGrath, Ridley, Merritt, well, not Merritt so much, but Redman and Dyson Heppel and those guys as well. So I think looking at the scoring, he did score 110, but, preseason practice match game. How much do you weigh into that as well? It's an option.
He's definitely not one that I'm going to start with, but for those that play draft,
definitely.
Absolutely on the board. Ridley's kick-ins worried me, 35%. Considering that, and I mean this with all the love and respect in the world because I think he's a gun, he needs to be intercept marking, kick out to become a top 6 defender in the league this year because it's going to be it is going to be such a fight at the top of that list. Lloyd is genuinely the only mid defender, that I would happily put money down on finishing in the top 6 because anything can happen. I know injuries can happen. That's the unlucky thing. But Stewart, Lockie Whitfield, Def mid back there. A Pendlebury could end up in the top 6 because he gets that DPP. So many things are going to happen. Can you rely on him to take these intercept marks and to take kickouts? The first game says no, but this is why we need more preseason games to check this stuff out. For the Dogs,
speaking about that too, I know they brought in Jake Kelly as well. And one of the big things throughout the preseason was, hey, Jake Kelly coming in is going to free up Ridley. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Whereas you actually watch that game, Ridley looks kind of lost sometimes. He did take intercepts. There was a few kickouts, but seems like he's really, really got to try and figure out what his position is. And I agree. Last year, it seemed like he got a lot of points from the kick-out position. So you've got someone else there now who potentially is going to take that off him. 35% really isn't a lot for him. So it is very worrying. It's kind of kicked him out of my starting 30 for this year, just seeing that practice game. Maybe next week's going to be different, but definitely this week.
Yeah, we'll say this. We'll upload it, and then he'll churn out 140 in the JLT game, and we'll look. I think Marsh Community Series game. And we'll look silly. But yeah, as we sit here right now, having him in your back 6, you are relying on a much bigger increase, and I can't gamble on that yet. So I agree with you.
Definitely.
So the Doggies, mate. I had my eye on only 2 players, classic wise. Jackson McRae. This man could find the footy blindfolded underwater with marbles in his mouth at this point. I am convinced that he has to sleep with a footy next to him. He just has to. It doesn't make sense if he doesn't. So he gets the huge tick, 699K. Just have him in your midfield, build your midfield around him. But Adam Treloar was the big one that I was looking at going, he's best. He's a lock. And as someone that shares, not that I can speak for Adam's experience, but as someone that, shares a mental health struggle, the fact that Adam's scoring is going to fluctuate depending on his mental state, I think should be put as a red flag for Supercoach players. But he looks fit, he looks healthy, and every time the camera panned to him when he didn't have the footy in his hands, he looked like he had a smile on his face, which was a huge tick for me. He's in my side at the moment, happy to ride the wave with him, and we can figure out, once, if Treloar doesn't work out, him to Taranto after round 6, when Toby Green comes back in and Taranto goes back into the midfield, that's an easy trade for me to make. And with the trade boost, I could still, do a rookie down and a rookie up and then Treloar to Taranto. So I actually think it's lower risk than a lot more, whether it's content creators or just people involved on social media are sort of giving him credit for, because he's, in my opinion, he's there. You could interlock it. If every one of their midfielders is at their best, he's third behind McRae, Bont and McRae in that order. But Libba, you got the consistency there. I love Treloar as an option. Under 500K is in my side at the moment.
Wow, I'm surprised you didn't say Josh Dunkley. You know, he got 37 touches on the weekend, right?
Who's not starting Josh Dunkley though? We won't.
Okay.
We won't.
Well, you didn't mention him, so I'm like, watch list. Nah, Josh Dunkley. I'm not going to say anything.
I'm watching him in my F1 spot and not moving.
Yeah. I think Josh Dunkley definitely for me was working out kind of what his position was. I think Bailey Smith was out for that game, but kind of working out what his position was coming back from injury. I know last year, that last kind of maybe 8 games or so, his scoring really dropped off. Yeah. But it seems like this preseason he's kind of got his midfield bull roll back, and he's loving it down there.
He won their time trial.
Yeah.
And I think someone was saying that his first or second year, I think it was Dunkley. If I'm wrong, please someone correct me in the comments, but I think he got lapped in his second or third preseason. He's gone from that to winning it, and we know how good that he is. If he's not your F1...
you're in trouble.
Yeah, please join my league. That's all I'll say.
I've got some cash leads going.
Yeah, 100%.
Give me some money.
Yeah, that's it.
I think Bailey Dale as well seems to have that main distributor role off the halfback. Not many people are talking him up or even picking him. Like, I think I've seen 1 or 2 teams maybe.
Yeah.
But I think he got something like 50% kickouts.
Yeah.
So he's still that distributor that got him maybe I think it was like F5, F6 in our teams last year. And now he's a defender at 500K. So he's definitely worth a look at there. Bit of a pod, bit of a something like that, but probably a more set and forget role than like a Ridley at the moment for a cheaper price. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird thing in Supercoach, is it? Because Bailey Dale is not what we'd call a sexy pick. He's not the Lloyd, the Stewart. But I agree with you. Like, he came from nowhere. He was such a beautiful kick inside 50 when he was a half-forward flanker. It just made so much sense. This is a guy that kicked out a Norm Smith medalist out of the position he won a Norm Smith medal in. And Johannesson cannot get back on a halfback flank for the life of him.
Now he's playing forward.
Yeah.
So
it's nuts.
I think the teams, going back to what we were saying about Ridley and those other players, Zach Merritt and McGrath playing backline, the backline is definitely taken over now by really good ball users.
Yeah.
Similar to, I think a few years ago, it was more, if you've got pace or if you can, pass really well, that kind of thing. But pure ball users now, they're so good off the backline, and teams realize how useful they are, because if you get your ball locked in the forward 50, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So having those players that can really do that on field for you consistently is really good.
And considering also, because you don't have to kick it to yourself, if a team kicks a point, you have got so much more leeway to do kind of what, I'm not trying to make this a Hawthorn thing, I promise, but in 08, we would rush behinds against Geelong. Like Brent Guerra was potting them from 45. We'd get Clinton Young and just attack the fat side, and teams are doing it. They did it all last year. Jake Lloyd played on from all of his kickouts. Tom Stewart played on from all of his kickouts. Like, kickouts needs to be the thing we're looking at premium defenders throughout the Marsh Community Series game. Who's taking them? Like, I agree with you. 35% for Ridley ain't good enough. If James Sicily's only taking 35% for the Hawks, he's one of the best marks in the comp, and the sound that the ball makes off his boot is electric. If he's not taking our kickouts, I'm not having him in my team at all. That is the metric we're looking at, which even 3 years ago would have sounded ludicrous.
Yeah, especially with a lot of midfielders potentially getting that DPP back as well. So, like, if we can get Zorko in the back line, if he's popping out 110s, are you going to pick Ridley or Short over him? Probably not. So we'll just wait and see what happens, really.
Yeah, we absolutely are. And Zorko on half. Like, I had him as a forward last year, and that was just great. Chef's kiss, gorgeous, loved it.
Yeah. So next up, we've got Carlton and St Kilda. Anyone you're looking at?
Well, it was weird. So I had my sort of friends draft. So I'm running a draft league on my channel, but I'm also running one with my partner, a bunch of mates, and that was all right. I drafted, get this, Sam Walsh, Patrick Cripps, Adam Chera, and George Hewitt.
Wow.
So I kind of looked at all of them, surprisingly. But I think the two of those that we need to keep the biggest eye on are Chera and Hewitt, the two new recruits. The reason for that is Sam Walsh is going to come back earlier than we expect he does. Patrick Cripps has dropped 36 average points since 2018. Surely that won't fall again. So the two ones that we need to question is, what is George Hewitt's role? Now, he actually scores as good, if not better, when he's a tagger because he's so around the footy. That's, when he was playing for Sydney, I remember him going to Dusty, I think it was 2020, and he churned out about 119. Like, when he's around the footy, he's golden. So if he does have a tagging job, it's not like you're looking at a Matt DeBoer who's just not going to go near the footy. He can still get definitely. It. But Adam Cherra's a class act, but the price is pretty awkward. Zach Williams was named Carlton's third best player. He could have scored 300 on the weekend, and I can't do it. I just can't. When
How
you're
is
picking
he Carlton's third best player? Seriously.
Yeah, when you're picking the guys that either you're starting with or you're hoping to bring in. So usually I have a list of 10 that I try to fit into 6, and that depends on prices, form, all these injuries, all these kinds of things. When I'm doing my first team, when Supercoach Gold users can do it. And I'm looking at it as, right, who are the guys that are going to take the most kickouts? Who are the best users? Who can also take a mark? And Zach Williams doesn't fit neither of those three for me. He's bloody quick, definitely. And I like it, but draft option, good luck to you. I think he went drafted in our league, certainly wasn't by me, so I wasn't keeping an eye on him. What about you? Who are you looking at for the Blues?
Well, on the Carlton side, I think George Hewitt's probably the only one really. That sub 400K price mark is probably the only thing that's really enticing for me. But it's another case of a midfielder playing in defence. So if he's going to get a lot of mid-time, if he's going to score hundreds at sub 400K, you kind of have to pick him. So just wait and see, really. One of those cases I really wish that everyone was back, that it wasn't just like a fluff game, and having a couple more preseason games in there as well. So it's definitely watch and see for me, just to kind of see what happens, because 100K more, 150K more than a Coleman, which you can do with a couple of rookies moving around.
Yeah.
You could potentially get a keeper who's going to pop out 110s every so often for that price. So it's really important. Yeah.
And if it's not working out and we assume that Pendlebury's going to play a more back role, these guys that we expect to get DPP, these are going to be guys that are losing money initially. Like, people need to understand, if it's midfielders that are going to go mid-forward or mid-def, they're not scoring midfield numbers, so their price is going to drop. And if it's not working out that badly, going sideways from Hewitt to Pendlebury, while sideways trades suck, it might be a situation where you use your trade boost or whatever it is also going to be an option as well. I think he's the defender getting slept on the most around that price, to be honest. You got your Millerers and these kind of guys that, everyone sort of jumped on. He's got the senior experience. He's gone to Carlton for more opportunities. I like it. I think I like it more than I'm probably talking myself into it more as we're talking right now. So maybe I might need to do some tinkering.
Yeah, definitely. Just wait and see, really. You might even sideways swap him for the next Stephen May at 400K. So
there you go. I'll take that from
Whitfield gets knocked out again and then drops down to that price. So yeah, just 100%. Wait and see. I think from St Kilda, basically it's just Jack Steele.
Yeah,
there's a couple of rookies, that kind of thing coming through, but just making sure that he's fine. He played the same kind of role. He didn't score as well, but I think he just took it easy. So that's it for me. Gresham a little bit.
Yeah. He's either going to be, if I put him in my team, he's either going to be the guy that this time next year I talk about what an idiot I was for having him, or he's the guy that is going to make me cheer. And there's no in between. And that's what I think you got to consider when you're putting him in your side. Is he going to be awesome, or is he going to let you down? Now, if you're on the confident side of I think he's going to be awesome, by all means have him. I think he's in my team at the moment. I think that midfield, St Kilda, and I've had some St Kilda fans be really upset with me. They have the most boring midfield in the competition.
Oh, definitely.
And that's including, they need X factor unbelievably, and he provides that. So if the Saints, if they're losing momentum in a game, which does happen in every game of footy, to put him in there, he's going to be a guy that might score 10 points at quarter time and have 65 at half. He's like that. Sub 300K, he is in my borderline lock section, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just a wait and see for me, really. I don't think he played a full game in the pre, so it's just kind of see what his role is next week, and then kind of make a calculated decision from that. Going off the X Factor comment, like they brought in Brad Hill, they brought in Hanbury. They wish those guys were going to be that. And a lot of it relies on Jack Steele, and that's why he goes like 160 some games, because he's just that good. So, yeah, kind of just wait and see with Graham with Gresham, and then kind of go from there, really. Yeah.
It is ahead of his minutes restriction as well, Jade. So he's doing everything that St Kilda have asked for him, which at this stage, huge tick.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So next up, we have North and Melbourne.
Well, first of all, I'd like to offer my condolences to you and any fellow North fans that are watching. We'll start with your boys. I don't think I've got a North player in my team who doesn't have a hyphen in their name, but Horn Francis has been a lock since the start. I am gutted that he is not a forward, and I need to know who fudged those stats because every highlight of him in the Sandful is him taking grabs and kicking snags up forward. Had 21 touches and kicked 3-3 in a Sandful final. Who didn't let him be a forward? That would solve a lot of my problems right now that I've got on my side.
He did play a decent amount of mid-time as well. He's so good around the stoppage that maybe they just thought, hey, we don't want to make an instant lock player again. Like, everyone's got to pick him all the time. So, come around 6, it's probably going to happen, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so strange seeing how badly some number one picks, you'd argue, and I'm probably missing one or two in here, so I do apologize to those players, but you'd argue from, to probably Brendan Goddard as a number one pick up until Sam Walsh. Number one picks in Supercoach were abhorrent. And now you've got Walsh, you've got Rowell, who hopefully is going to be, a gun, but his first year, those first games were extraordinary. And we look at Andy McGrath in his first year was fantastic for us. We got Horn Francis, and although Jamara didn't really work out for us, that's the key forward thing again. That's outside of his control. It's this whole should we really be paying $200K for a rookie? Man, when they're this good, yes, it's the simple answer.
He's very good.
Yeah,
like great. The preseason game didn't really show it, but if you don't start him, you're in trouble.
So. At $570K, what do you think on Zeeble? Because I am exactly as I was this time last year, which is a hell no. And the only thing that changed my mind was his price last year. And at $570K, I know Aaron Hall's got an injury. I can't do it.
I don't think the role's going to change. So if you picked him up at that price to start, it wouldn't be such a bad option. I just don't think it's that much of an exciting pick. So I don't see his role changing. The ball's going to be down there a bit. We saw, obviously, Hall didn't play, but we saw how he kind of fit in with Ben McKay and Core as like the three tools, plus even Walker on there as well.
Yeah.
He's still getting used as that distributor, shanked it a few times, that kind of thing. But it's just kind of, for me, it's just not that much of an exciting pick. You kind of get what you get. So he'll definitely, if nothing changes, he'll still be D8. So like, between 1 to 8. In the rankings. So he's a worthy pick, but maybe you could pick him up for 50, 60K cheaper later on during the season.
I think he'd have to have a 4 in front of his name to be considered.
Yeah, definitely. If he's not like super cheap, you don't really start him.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
One watch for me, North definitely had a few rookies, like you're saying, Horn Francis, Ugoda and Perez. Goda did okay, Perez didn't play. A couple of those guys, but Taron Thomas was probably the look for me. He definitely impressed. He definitely showed me what he needed to show me. And I'm picking him in my forward line right now.
I feel bad for Taron because that 2018, the top 10 picks there are just extraordinary as you go down that list. And, I've had my frustrations with Isaac Rankin, but sort of, I look at Chase Jones there as well, who went pick 10. It was just this 2018 draft class just exploded and these guys got left behind. But this is how the progression should go. This will be year 5 for him.
I think so, yeah.
So this year and then for the next 3 or 4 years need to be his career best years. So at the price that he's at, if he follows on that projection, absolutely. He's one of those guys that I still think can score on a wing. Not many guys can do it, but he's a beautiful user. He torched my boys in Tassie last year and he torched Carlton as well when that game that Nick Larkey kicked 7, but he kicked 4 or 5 or
I think so.
Yeah. Had a day out, and consistency might be the issue. But if I'm backing any of those sort of 400K guys to break out, whose name's not Adam Treloar, I think Taron Thomas is probably third on that list behind Zach Butters.
One thing that people don't really realise about him too, I know that his forward time gets harped on a bit, but he's a midfielder that can kick goals, break out from the packs, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Really good pass, but when he does go forward, he kicks goals. Yep. So he practiced a lot being that deepest forward, the one that zips away from the tall defender, gets the ball and kicks goals, similar to like a Green or a Charlie Cameron, those kind of guys do. So if he's not in the midfield, he's kicking goals up forward. Last year he scored 27-13.
Yeah. So,
a few more goals instead of points on that, and he's only going to get better. There's no way he gets worse. If you look at the guys who were that 2018 crop, Taron Thomas definitely missed a bit of time due to injury. So early in his career, I know he had a foot injury, had a couple of other things happening. So his progression maybe was set back a year, which means that this year is probably the year that he breaks out, just because the potential and the opportunities there. They're not going to play him in the midfield.
No, yeah, that's surely. And with Ben Cunnington, and we wish him all the very best. And it was an emotional time seeing him back in the fold in a really cruel sounding way. And I mean no cruelness behind it at all. That only has to up Taron Thomas's Supercoach stock. It just does. Because Jai Simpkin is the only guy in that midfield that I can comprehensively say is a better player than Taron Thomas or will be by the end of the year.
And the thing with North too, Jai Simpkin, LDU are probably the only guys who are set for pure mid-time, and everyone else rotates between the half forward and forward and midfield. So he's going to get the time there. Looking at Melbourne, there probably wasn't anyone. I think what Max Gawn did kind of locked him into my side, considering Darcy's been injury prone at the moment. And Oliver and Petrarca just dominating as normal. So that's pretty about it. I don't think they've really got any rookies going. I know we saw a bit of Bowie in there. I don't know if you saw him a couple of times, but there's other people who are better at the same price. So
and I said it in my Melbourne preview, my worry with Petrarca, it's my worry with Dustin Martin. It has been my worry about Marcus Bontempelli in the past, although not as much. When you play that, bash bull, grab the game by the throat style, get your team over the line, when you're playing poor opposition, you might not necessarily get out of first gear, which is a worry. And Melbourne's fixture is going to be difficult. They are the reigning premier after all, so maybe he's a safer pick than he was last year. But Clary is go to woe no matter the opposition. I just worry that Petrarca's style might bring in, a 90 against a Gold Coast or an 85 against, an Adelaide that might just get you to go, and tear your hair out. But I think Petrarca is one of those guys that we're going to be looking at the buy and going, you just got to
definitely lock him in if you've got space. I know with Oliver especially, just speaking of that lower scores dropping down the price historically, I think almost every season that he's been a primo, he's dropped in price around 6 to 9. So he's not currently in my side, but he's definitely a player I want before the buys. So I'm happy if he drops like a sub 100 score, he's so priced as well that he needs to pump out 120s basically just to keep his price. So I'm just kind of banking on, okay, I'll pick him up at sub 600. He's in my team, but I'm just waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those rookie spots. I'm just looking, maybe it is a Horn Francis going, you're just going to become Clary. It's not yet, but you'll get there.
Hey, it's going to happen.
That's it.
One day. He's going to freak out some teams, seriously. Some of the stuff he does against mature ages.
And he's so far ahead of Victorian boys in the draft just because of the COVID-ravaged world as well. And, of course, his natural talent. So you put those two things together, I just don't understand. I think he's in 58% of teams last I checked. That's 42% of teams that are just...
they need to go up a bit higher.
Again, feel free to join my leagues. I'd love to have you.
Yeah. Well, the Hawks... Hawks are going to get a bit of a shock, I reckon, if they haven't already from him. So
I don't know if I'll run a tipping comp off my channel or we'll do one together. But and this is annoyed. I work with Talking Hawks, who are a Hawthorn fan base alternative media program. I write for them. I'm on their live streams constantly. There is no chance in hell I'm tipping us round one. Absolutely none. And I think that's going to surprise some Hawthorn people when we get back into constant, game reviews, previews, both written and visual, that any Hawthorn fan that's going, we should be rocking up and smacking North, I think's in for a rude awakening.
Yeah. I know definitely there's a couple of interviews after getting smashed by Melbourne and the coaches were just like, we are not happy.
Yeah.
And that's enough for me just to tip us round one because they're going to be, they're pissed. So they want a lot more and they expect a lot more. So, see what happens. I mean, it was the Wooden Spooners versus the Premiers, right?
Yeah.
And they've got basically the two best midfielders in the game. So, what can you do?
They're pretty much full strength anyway, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Cop it on the chin.
Looking up Brisbane Adelaide.
Oh, mate, this game made me so happy as a Supercoach player. Jared Berry, line up, son. You're absolutely in there. Lockie Neal. Oh, we think we're going to play him more forward. Yeah, you did that. He still scored massive. This was so beautiful to watch. If you've got Jared Lyons as a pod, I think he scored 111 and only played He didn't play as many minutes as the others, so he still, dominated. Like, this was beautiful. Matt Crouch on a minutes restriction, I think still had 91. Oh, this was a game that made every Supercoach player happy, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty good to watch. Berry basically, as you say, locked himself into your team now.
Yep.
Sad we couldn't see Coleman, as we talked about before. I think, how did Rayner go? Were you impressed with his game?
Scored. I think if people are out there that are considering him, he's not in my side at the moment. I think you need to take away from the fact of he got healthy. He broke tackles when he needed to. I think he only got caught with the push off once, and I think he went with his non-dominant hand, which was a little bit amusing. I think that was him on the far wing there. So don't look at his 49 as Cam Rayner scored 49. He got through fit. He was on a minutes restriction. He did everything Brisbane asked him to do. If he scores 49 this week, put your hands up and go, there are other guys at that price. But he is a wait and see. If he's in your team and you can get him down to maybe a Will Brodie or someone around that mark, just keep him there. That's all fine. But he needs to be the guy you're circling to watch Brisbane's game if you're not a Brisbane supporter.
Definitely. I think he was in my side a few weeks ago, but right now he's not. So just wait and see, that kind of thing.
And rookie watch as well. Darcy Wilmot's going to get in that team at some stage. And, that man oozes class. He was fantastic. I know Zorko's got to come back in and he'll go on his halfback role. So he's not going to be a guy we start. But you need to be looking at rookies that you expect to come into the team at some point. Every team gets injuries. Darcy Wilmot will play for Brisbane this year. You might not, it might be a struggle to count his possessions at times, but geez, he's going to make his possessions count, which in Supercoach is just beautiful.
He's definitely pushing down the door. Yeah, unless, like you say, if someone's injured, he'll jump in there. So it's really good to watch. Speaking on Lachie Neale on the wing, he did play wing sometimes and score really well off the wing last year too. So, people saying, he's going to the wing, he's not going to be in the middle, he's not going to get the points. It's like, it's not going to happen. He's still going to score well. So, can't complain with that.
He's still lined up on 8.5% of centre bounces. He lined up on a wing the year he won the Brownlow.
Yeah, exactly, right?
This is a Brownlow medalist at under 550K who's fully fit.
How do you not pick him?
Stop it. Yeah.
It's a bit silly.
Stop it.
Yeah. So you mentioned Crouch. I don't think there's probably anyone else really Adelaide worthy. I know if Dawson played, then he would have been a must watch, but anyone else really?
No. Crouch, and that's it. No.
Yeah, pretty much.
Easy. I know Miller has got fans, but you need to see him. He whether he plays 40 minutes or he plays 400 minutes, you're not putting him in your team until he's named for round one. You watch him run out on the ground and you watch him get through the warm-up.
Definitely. And I think Rob was kind of slow too. I know some people were thinking him as a bit of an outside ruck choice, but I think he was pretty slow as well.
Yeah, Oscar McInerney towed him up. I'll tell you who we do have to keep an eye on. Josh Rochelle, kicked 3 and scored really well, 184K. He is going to be the kind of guy that gets you 120s or 40s at times because you need that kind of X-factor player. But what did really please me when I know the senior boys got taken off the ground a bit, but he was lining up at stoppages inside the forward 50. So that's a tick. And in a year where we're probably going to need one under 200K forward to start, depending on your structure, I think Josh Rochelle is leading the pack because he's going to get games. Adelaide aren't very good. He'll churn you out. His break even will get to about 70. Most people will jump off. He's got the ability to go 110, get you that extra bit of cash, and then you can lop him off whoever fallen premium goes to Toronto or something.
Sounds a bit like Rowe from last year.
Yes.
He had a couple of bad games.
His ceiling's higher than Jimmy Rose, who probably kicked the goal of the Pracky game weekend as well. That left foot from the boundary, that was an unbelievable goal from Big Jimmy. His old man would have loved that.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Gold Coast and Port. I'll start this. Gold Coast looked all right. There definitely seemed to be a few different players playing positions. I think Lachie Weller was maybe playing off the halfback role. I know he's Supercoach eligible in the forward line.
Yes.
I think Alex Davies from memory did quite well as well. But I know he had a little bit of talk a few weeks ago and then kind of went silent. Now he popped out like an 86 or a 90 odd, taking a bit of that Greenwood role. And then Matt Rowell as well. So cheeky 110. I know that the scaling and the point scoring was a little bit weird, just playing, different times on ground, that kind of thing. But yeah, look to be back to his best as well. What do you reckon?
Yeah, Rowell is my theory with Rowell is I did everything I could to draft him, and I did. because if I'm going to ride the wave for him, I think draft is less risky. So he's not starting in my team. And there's a guy from Collingwood who's around the same price who's not also, even though they both performed outstandingly. I just can't do it. Let's get some continuity in the kid. I'd rather watch him explode and jump on him once he's got 8 games into him, even though he's going to be more expensive, than start with him like I did last year, get to round 3, and if the poor kid does another injury, he's only going to be put on more people's never again list, which, we need to accept as fans that has an effect on how much we like watching players. Isaac Heaney heads that front. That watching Sydney is becoming a lot more frustrating for fans who have him on their never again list. So I don't think I can allow myself to do that to Rowley because I love the kid so much. But yeah, I'll have him on my draft team, ride the wave, because when he's on the park, he looks like Gold Coast's best player, or fighting Touk Miller and Ben King for that anyway. And the kid's only 20, 21?
Yeah. I think it's like his 3rd year this year.
Yeah, so outstanding.
Yeah, he's crazy good. He's not Horn Francis good, but he's
that's a big call.
Yeah. We'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, just kind of, I agree with what you're saying. He's that weird price that you really have to be guaranteed that he's going to keep scoring well.
Yeah.
And with Gold Coast now losing Greenwood, Ben King's out for basically the entire year as well. I just don't know if they can do it. I know they had the cheeky win over Port and everyone's praising them for that. But when it comes to guts during the season, I just don't know if he's going to be able to stand up and score those big numbers. Because you need him to score 150K, like price rise, or to become a keeper.
Yep. Maybe
that's a bench cover keeper, but you need him to be able to do either at that price. So it's kind of, you really got to weigh it up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's a risk that I can't take as of yet. And what's interesting to me is I remember having this conversation with a few people. If he was 40K cheaper, I'd probably have him. Like, it's so tight, definitely. That gap. It's just way too awkward for me. So what about Port, mate?
I think Josh Sin definitely showed a lot.
Yep.
I think he's probably a lock in most people's defence. He did really well, but purely as well because we just don't have those defender rookies available. He did really well. I know Jackson Mead kind of showed a lot. I don't know if there's space for him in that midfield, but we'll just wait and see with that. I think ideally those two are probably the only ones that I saw or took a lot of notice from. Finlayson was kind of everywhere, but he's not really at least classic relevant. What about you?
He's champion data relevant, Jeremy Finlayson. He was rated elite.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Zach Butters is a man that holds a very special place in my heart. I'm a big Zach Butters fan, so watching, I think it was 158 next to his name, just made me wonder, how the hell am I going to fit him in my team? But it's him v. Treloar for that F2 spot for me. Well, probably him v. Treloar v. Zach Bailey as well for Brisbane, who I don't think I talked about, who I probably should have, who dominated as well. But Zach Butters is a guy who he scores so well on a half-forward flank. So if he's, Port Adelaide's 3 biggest CBAs in the finals were Wines, Boak, and Robbie Gray. If they continue to do that, which they absolutely shouldn't, but who knows what goes through Ken Hinkley's head, that if Zach Butters is stranded on a half-forward flank, as we call it, stranded, he's still going to score. He's not going to score 40 points in a quarter, but he's not going to die off. So at under 420K, I'm talking myself into taking 54 blokes in a 30-man team.
I think he actually got leveled up to 164 points too.
There you go.
158. So yeah,
oh boy,
bit crazy. One of those guys in the forward line you have to kind of take, and if you don't, you're missing out on the value there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
All right. Who we've got next? We might just try and move a bit quicker with these. So we go Collingwood versus Hawthorn. Obviously, you're a Hawks man. Who are you looking at? Let's do them first.
Tom Mitchell didn't get out of first gear. Didn't need to. I genuinely think that he's not a starter.
Okay.
I don't think he's a starter in our teams because I think he's going to drop in price. So, new coach, although Mitch can't play anywhere else on the ground, and I've talked about this a bit, he doesn't need to kick the footy as much anymore. We need to find out whether Jaeger O'Meara could be on the list for another 2 years. We need to find out if Jimmy Warple can stay on the list. He looked outstanding, Jimmy. He's definitely more of a draft option, of course, not a classic relevant player, but Titch is going to be one of those guys that, sure, he could get a 130 here or there, but there is absolutely no reason why he can't churn out 3 sub-100 scores and we pick him up for 550, which is a genuine lock to be. So he's the player that I'm looking at. And the only other Hawthorn relevant player, I believe, is James Sicily, who looked not a hair out of place, under 450K. He's a lock in my side. He'll take the kickouts. He's our best. Him and Jack Scrimshaw can probably fight for best kick in that back six.
Mm-hmm.
And Sis can kick the ball comfortably 10, 15 metres further than Scrim can, who was dominant as well. So, but the one player that I do want to talk about, this is my little public service announcement. Do not pick Finn McGuinness. Okay. Everyone out there at 144K, he's not in Hawthorn's best 22. No. In the VFL, he was a tagger. He played a bit on the wing. His foot skills just aren't there. He's this guy that's been talked about a lot that I'm going, I wonder why. He might come into the team and make us a bit of coin. If he's there round one, we have had a horrific run of injuries. He did play as the probables, if we'll call it, in the first periods. That was without CJ. That was without Jarman Impey. Mm-hmm. That was without Chad Wingard. So we did have a few X-Factor players. 144K, forward mid. Don't touch him.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking to your list of guys trying to work out what you want to do with them, I think you probably put Chad Wingard on that list too. That you brought in that maybe as an outsider doesn't seem like he's kind of found out what he wants to do and kind of locked himself in that position as well. So does he play forward? Does he play mid? Kind of working that out.
He's one of those players we wish we could clone, have one at the centre bounce and one on a half forward flank. So I a bit like St Kilda. I think if St Kilda have a challenger for boring midfield, it's definitely ours. And Chad's that guy, a bit like he's a premium version of Jay Gresham that should be able to go into the contest and impact it in big ways. And this whole Chad's been a disappointment narrative is just complete crap for me. I know he was a two-time All-Australian as a Port Adelaide player and he hasn't been an All-Australian at Hawthorn. I understand that, but this is a guy that's finished third in the best and fairest twice, been ultra consistent, been more durable than I think Port Adelaide were worried about. So I wouldn't start him. Probably there are better options up forward, but he's a guy that you need to keep an eye on because the sort of the worse that Hawthorn go, if we do go badly, the more centre bounces I think he can attend, especially with Titch and maybe a Josh Ward or Connor McDonald in the mix as well.
Probably not Supercoach relevant though.
Not classic, no, but draft-wise, I think he's falling a bit, so jump on him.
Okay, cool. So people have been saying that McDonald looks like a pretty good pick.
Yeah,
he performed well.
Absolutely is. I've got a family friend who knows Connor quite well, and she said to me that whoever ends up with him is going to be awesome. And you got to remember as well, Hawthorn had Tyler Sonsie at Box Hill. Sam Mitchell got Tyler Sonsie in front of his eyes for an extended period of time and drafted Connor McDonald ahead of him.
Definitely.
As good as Tyler Sonsie is going to be, if you believe all the reports, I haven't seen the kid live, so I can't say whether he's good, bad, or otherwise. Sam Mitchell gets lauded for his footy brain, took Connor McDonald ahead of him. I think McDonald is closer to a debut than Ward, personally, and I think he's going to be the biggest cash cow for the Hawks this year.
Yeah, and Sam Mitchell probably did quite a good job of picking up Bramble and those guys mid-year last year as well. Being a Box Hill coach saying, pick us up because they're going to be desperate for him. So,
absolutely.
Let's turn to Collingwood.
If you don't have Jack Crisp in your team, you're doing what I did last year with Rory Laird. Conversation over on Jack Crisp. Yeah. Just put him in your team.
I'm going to counter that with when Howe and Moore and a couple of other players play in the team, his scoring actually drops off quite a lot. So his ceiling falls. I think he goes from something like a 120 average down to 100, which as a defender, it's still good. But if they've got a full back line, you're kind of jostling up him between a couple of other players. So for me personally, it's a bit of a watch this space and see how he goes. But I definitely can hear what you're saying and can sympathise with that.
Centre bounce attendances just went up in Morwell, and this isn't any point, but I'm going to give my Hawthorn players a smack here. He outmuscled Mitch Lewis and Ben McAvoy in consecutive contests.
Okay.
Which is just not good enough from the Hawks, but I thought I had to get that out there because I've been holding on to that anger for a while and needed to come out at some point. But yeah, he can score on a halfback flank. He can score in the midfield. I know 571K you could look at and think it's a bit expensive, but he won Collingwood's best and fairest last year. The man's a star, and Howe and Moore are a bit injury prone anyway.
I think that's the only thing holding me back is just the price.
Yeah. Well, speaking of price,
on the lead pretty much,
Yeah. And speaking of price, Pat Lipinski had more of the footy than any other Collingwood player. And it wasn't like a sexy 35 disposal game. Even being at Morwell for those first 4 quarters, I'm not saying he didn't stand out. You could definitely tell when he had the footy, but it wasn't like you remember when like Dane Swan would have 35 and we'd go, oh, Swanee's one of the best players in the comp. Like Lipinski dominated and the eye test told you he was good and he churned out bigger than a ton.
Yeah.
I want to pick him for 40k cheaper. I want to pick him. Like the
Sounds a
Dogs
bit
wanted
like,
him.
Josh Dunkley too.
Yeah.
Kind of gets a lot of possessions, but not necessarily lauded as much for that. Yeah.
And he's going to have centre bounce attendances with Pendlebury back. You know, they're going to, I mean, Collingwood put out a report that had 38 blokes rotating through the midfield, so who knows? But he finds the footy. Like, he found it at VFL level for the Dogs. And, you know, the Dogs offered him 3 years. This is a guy that didn't go, I'm not getting the opportunity because I'm not good enough. It's, I'm not getting the opportunity because there are A+ players ahead of me, whereas I'm probably an A grader.
Yeah, like, how can you compete with the Bont or McRae for centre bounce numbers?
Yeah, exactly right. And another guy that I picked up late in my draft as well, so very happy.
Nick Dacos did quite well too.
Yeah, get him in your team. He took kickouts. He took 3 kickouts, played on from all of them, and kicked it to Pendlebury twice, which is a scary prospect.
Yeah.
Ooz's class, this kid. His NAB League numbers are just extraordinary, and I know that it looks like guys might be a bit behind because of COVID protocol, but he's trained with Collingwood because they knew they were going to get him. 190k, him and Horn Francis should be your D7 and D8 or D6 and M6 or M7 or M7 and M8. So lock them in.
Yeah. I think some people might even have him at like M6, M5 as well, just depending on
M5,
how light
depending on
going.
your structure, of course. Yeah.
Grundy did quite well, so I think he's back to proper form again. I know there was some concerns and fitness-wise and stuff, but I think he looks really good.
He looks ready to be the R1 that I think we all expect him to be this year.
Yeah,
love how Max Lynch counted him. So Max Lynch was actually, I noticed, jumping into his left half of his ribs there. So Grundy would be forced to shift position in the air a bit, and that neutralised him a touch. So Max Lynch, former Collingwood player, played Grundy in every match simulation and might have found out a weakness thing, but I say a weakness thing for a guy that he's still going to average 120 this year. So how much of it is it really going to affect him? So if he's not in your team, you know, you might be worried. His neck is fine. Geez, he covered the ground well at Morwell. He's in my team.
Yeah, definitely. Are we missing anyone? I don't think so. There's no one really in the forward line.
Elliott kicked 5. Can't wait for people to overreact and get him in their sides. That'd be funny.
Oh, I think his projected score is like 80 or 90 and he's only 400k. Yeah. So I've seen him in a lot of sides that have just gone by projection. Yeah. So like that's pretty bad it.
I'll tell you who we are missing. We are missing one. Rookie, Charlie Dean.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Look, I watched him so closely I forgot about him, but intercept marking, he was great. And I'll tell you what he does do that guys his size don't do that well. Geez, he tackles well. Yeah. He's stuck all of his tackles, and if he can get 4 or 5 a game, that is going to make his score go up. 102k. I think the Pies were shocked to get him in the rookie draft. I was shocked that he made it that far. I know Hawthorn were interested, but defense is the only place we've settled, so we didn't go for him there. So yeah, he 102k. I think put him on your bench for now. And if, you know, Howe or Moore don't get up, he'll be a very good early season cash cow.
I think he's locked in as well because Roughhead's out. So
there you go. Oh, yeah, Rough is out. So, yeah, Charlie Dean, get him in your side.
I think I was a bit sad that North didn't pick him up, especially because we had the rookie number 1 pick. But what can you do, really?
Yeah, that's it.
So we've got Sydney versus Giants.
Yeah, didn't take a lot from this game on the pure sense of both sides you could see were playing with their structures a bit. So Stephen Cornelio's locked in my side. Had a big midfield role. I understand that. He's going to have a more forward role and rotate with Taranto, I know. But that price for Stephen Cornelio, of course you're going to have him on your side, and so you should. But as far as you know, Mills didn't play, a bit injured at the moment, so I'm staying away from him. Jake Lloyd did what Jake Lloyd does. I'm convinced that if Jake Lloyd ended up the D2 from last year, not the D1, he would actually be a pod. But because he's the best defender in the league, because he's not a sexy pick, he's not the best one-on-one defender, but he plays on from all of his kickouts. He's a good user of the ball, and he's the king of the 20-meter chip and 1-2. So genuine lock.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my feeling with Jack Siebel, but I'm not going to pick him because of it.
Jack worries me on the 45 a little bit by foot, which might hurt us.
Heaney did quite well. I know Horse was saying that he's going to get that mid-time, and it definitely seems like he's doing that. Hopefully that's not just because Mills is out, but I know that JPK and a couple of other guys are aging, and they've just lost Hewitt in there, so probably a space for him to perform a lot more in the midfield.
Absolutely. He's going to be a guy that I think if I use my first trade boost, then he's probably going to be a guy I get in the side after round 2 and look at it. Because if he turns out 100, 120 round 1, round 2, Ideally, I'd love Callum Mills to play round 2 to see what Heaney's role is, and then I can get him without his price affected. That would be awesome. But if we know anything about the Supercoach gods, they hate all of us individually as much as each other, so we probably won't get that.
Definitely.
I can't start him yet. And then he'll churn out 138 or something in the JLT in the Marsh Community Series game and make me look like a fool. But I've just been burned too many times. I can't do it yet.
Me too. I brought him in. I think I brought him in. He had like an 80 and then dropped a couple of 40s last year, and then I traded him out. And then he had a good run for the last 6 games.
I was exactly the same. I got him when he was under 400K and traded him when he was about 430, and I just went, I can't do it again.
Yeah, it was really infuriating too because he'd do quite well in the first or second quarter.
Yeah.
And then basically do nothing for the rest of the game.
Yeah, he'd have 10 touches and kick 3 in the second quarter. He's on 80, and you're going, oh boy. Then you like, if you go out for dinner or something and you come back and check his score, he's on 88. You go, what happened?
He's on 64 because he's given away a couple of frees.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I think those are the guys that we're sort of looking at. And I don't think we learned a lot about Dylan Stevens or Braden Campbell in a post-Jordan Dawson world. So
no, definitely.
I'm probably staying away from both of them at the moment.
I've heard Sheldrick did a couple of, did a couple of good things. And there's no Matty Roberts, right? I think he's out.
Yeah, he's out
with injury. Yeah. So that's kind of them. Touching on GWS, I know we mentioned Bruce, but he's definitely not in my team now.
No, going nowhere near mine either. Matt Flynn's there, R1. It's as simple as that.
Definitely.
Braden Bruce went out he started in the 4th period and he wasn't hindered at all. So 200K, you look at a Sam Hayes for Port with Scotty Lycett out, cash cow option there. If Bruce is named round 1, you're going to have to probably play him because he's either the R1 or the R2. But when you've got, can GWS really go into a game with Flynn, Bruce, Himmelberg, Riccardi, and Hogan? I would say God, no. And the only one of them that is going to miss out is going to be Bruce because Flynn can take the ruck contest for 2/3 of the ground. And why can't Jesse Hogan do a Tom Hawkins and be the forward ruck down there and let Himmelberg compete in the square? So
and Flynn's pretty good in the forward 50 too. Yeah, as another marking target.
Yeah, very handy as well. And they need, that's their big weakness, the Giants, their tall forward. So he's staying out for the moment.
I can definitely see him being a bit of a, I'm going to say Hawks, but being a bit of a Ned Reeves that we had last year. Had a couple of good scores and then just didn't get a game for the rest of the season. So you really don't want to get sucked into having to trade Bruce out come round 3, 4, 5 for someone who's cheaper and being like, well, I could have just started someone else. So
if you have to trade him and he's made less than 100K, I'm putting it as a fail.
Definitely. So we've touched on Cornelio. He did quite well.
Yep.
Whitfield was on fire. He seems to have locked in and been super healthy, so he's put himself in my team as well.
Yeah, wish I had drafted him because he's one of those players that I can't take the risk on Classic yet. I'm really big on a guy that we're going to talk about in a tick. So Whitfield's not in my side at the moment. He's probably the one. He might be the Rory Laird of last year. Who knows? The defender mid that needs to be in the team. Can't do it at the moment. He just misses 3 games in a row at some point during the year, which is not what you want from a guy at 500K. So I can't do it at the moment. But that might be the one that bites me, and I've got the Jack Crisp take wrong. But for everyone, he's one of those guys that when someone says I've got Lockie Whitfield in my team, I absolutely understand why, and he probably should be in mine, but he's not yet.
Yeah, definitely. He's had a bit of a run with injuries every so often. I don't think he's played a full season yet.
Yeah.
But they're always random things like, I got concussed, so I missed a couple of games, or got a bit of a knock, that kind of thing. I don't think he's had a lot of soft tissue injuries. So if you can get, stay on the park for me, he's definitly a lock in there. 500K.
22 games. He's D4 probably ends the year. Yeah.
Easy. So what's his name? Tim Taranto, I don't think's really locked himself in my side at all. Not at that price, at least.
He needs to be your first forward upgrade. Toby Green's out for 6 weeks. As soon as Toby Green is named, bang, Tim Taranto, put him in your forward line.
Definitely.
This is a guy that won a best and fairest in a year his team lost the flag.
I think he played a lot of games. Like, he didn't play a full season then too.
No. So as soon as he starts playing more midfield time, because it's Kelly, Taranto, Hopper, and then probably Cornelio's your fourth, If Cornelio was Taranto's price, you wouldn't start him. So
no, definitely not.
You're not starting Taranto, but he is absolutely the first forward upgrade we should be making. There is a real chance that after round 6, Tim Taranto is 430K.
Yeah.
And once he gets into the midfield, he's averaging triple digits for the rest of the year. He just is. His disposal hurts him, but he's going from 120 to 105. A 105 from a forward, that's F1 this year or last year. So he's a lock during the year for me.
Yeah, definitely a wait and hope for him to price drop and then jump on it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. We've got West Coast and Freo.
Yeah, Nathan O'Driscoll was the big one I took out of this rookie-wise because we're going to need him. Def mid, so he'll help with flexibility with guys like Crisp or Whitfield throughout the year. I like what I saw. Andy Brayshaw, if you're not confident about, an Oliver keeping his price and you still want a premium, 584K, I think Andy B is a big one to watch for Freo.
Do you think he does enough? Do you think he does enough to be like a top 8?
Yeah, he's
definitely on the cusp for it. But
top 8's a big ask, and I understand that if you put him in, you're going to have to keep him, but it's his midfield now. Fife is going to play more forward. Mundy is still 73 and plays like he's 25, which is great, but with Sarong, it's Brayshaw's midfield until, not until, but it's Brayshaw, Sarong plus others, which sounds astounding considering I don't think Nat Fife's 31 yet, but he's durable. He's a leader, and you only got to look at the game against Richmond last year where he took the genuine PI 55 and got tagged that night as well, so he broke the tag. So if he's your M1 in draft, you're killing it. If you take him in Classic, 100% respect it.
Definitely. You mentioned O'Driscoll. Is there any other rookies?
Neil Erasmus
didn't play, I don't think.
He didn't play, but looks like a guy that we need to see in the community series before we pick him. Matty Johnson's injured at the moment, but what a star he's going to be. Probably post-buy downgrade option for the Dockers. I feel like I'm missing. Am I missing?
I don't think so.
I don't think
There's no Sean Darcy, so
no,
that's pretty about it, really.
Yeah, for the Dockers, they're probably one of the more intriguing teams to watch this year, just not in a Supercoach sense.
Yeah, just a knock on but just a note with Erasmus too. He missed out on the community game and then was their best player in the waffle like the next day. So, yeah, he should play next week and he should dominate. Yeah.
He absolutely should. I'm looking forward to seeing him. He's got X Factor personified, which we've spoken about a few times. But let's move on to the Eagles, mate, because this is just injuries personified. And
they don't have a lot going on, do they?
No, Campbell Chesser was one of the things making me extremely happy looking at my defense and the poor blokes out. And I don't think too many people were considering Yo or Shuey.
Well, I think they're both out.
Yeah, well, they're both definitely out now, so they're not probably causing too much of a fuss. But Campbell Chesser and Greg Clark being out for considerable periods is something that's going to affect our rookie stocks, which at the end of the day is probably what we care about. But do you buy into the Willie Rioli hype?
Not at the moment, and I think my forward line is definitely locked in enough that I can let other people take the risk.
Yeah,
and similar to a Connor West as well. They're both kind of the same price, touted to say that play the same kind of role.
Yeah.
But I'm happy just to let other people take them, and I'll take like a Bailey or a Heaney for 100K more.
Yeah, 100%. I'll tell you who we did forget, Will Brodie for Freo. Inside midfielder role, 224K. Locked in my team.
Ooh.
Yep.
He looks that good? There was some training reports that he kind of wasn't that great.
Did what he needed to do in this game, inside mid, again, 220K. I'm looking at how many of these 200K forwards can make 150K and then go. Will Brodie still scored. I know the NEFL or the VFL as it was last year is a lesser tier competition, but he was scoring in the forward line there with Matty Johnson out, Fife injury prone. Mundy might need rest this year. There's an inside mid role there for him. 224K. He's a better kick at goal than I think he gets credit for as well. So I'm backing him in to get 150K and then getting him up to, is it a Dusty? Is it whoever these? Is it a Heaney? Is it these guys? So, yeah, probably my controversial forward pick there, but Will Brodie's locked until I see a reason to take him out.
That's cool. Hey, everyone can make up their own decisions, right? So
that's it.
No worries.
He could either be my Jack Siebel or my Dom Tyson, and I don't think there's any in between there. So he's my risk that I'll take.
Definitely. And he's the right price too, that you can just offload him for a rookie on the bubble in the midfield.
Yep.
Couple of games, doesn't look good. Offload him, no worries.
That's it.
We didn't talk about Nick Nat. I know that he's a little bit Supercoach relevant at the moment. He'd had quite a good season, but personally, I just think with the depleted midfield, he's not going to do as well this year.
Yeah, I can understand that. Headouts to advantage is so good, but he played every game for the first time since, I think, 2015, which is extraordinary if you think about it like that. For impact per minute, he is one of the best players in the competition. And Nick Nat was in my side for both of my classic videos that I've already done. Loved him as the pot option. Then they got injured, and I went, I've just got to turn him into Gorn and be done with it, which sucks because, you know, he was that weirdly pod Uber premium option that I was feeling really, really good about. And it's unfortunate that it was outside of his control, that he's, you know, been forced out of my team at the moment. So it is a shame. But yeah, in a set and forget ruck world that I think you need to live in, it's Gorn and Grundy for me.
Definitely, which is weird saying because start of the season we thought it wasn't going to be. And now it's turning back into Gorn and Grundy land again. So, and
they'll both score about 80 in round one. We'll all panic. They'll score 300 between them in round two, and we'll all be fine.
Yeah, Bruce owners are going to be like, yeah, Bruce scored 120, Gorn scored 50, too bad. And then from the rest of the season, he wasn't seen. So, yeah, pretty much.
If you're going to catch up on points, do it with your rookie midfielders and your rookie forwards. Don't do it for your rookie ruckman.
Definitely true. So last up, we've got Geelong versus Richmond.
Yeah, so Cam Guthrie, again, another one, not a sexy pick, but looks like he's making his way into quite a lot of pod teams, which is fantastic. I would have loved to seen a bit more of Cooper Stevens, who's a guy who my beautiful comment section actually got me onto and got me really excited about. Looking forward to seeing what he can bring. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of cat relevancy in this game for me personally. I'm not saying that as a Hawthorn supporter. I'm saying that as a Supercoach player. But Tom Stewart's locked into my team and he's not leaving it until he's cut it off the ground. And he's not going to get cutted, I don't think. I hope not for this year. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of Geelong relevancy for me. What about you?
Sam De Koning did some things. I think he may have an okay season down back, but he's not going to be the guy that's going to score you huge points. And then Tyson Stengel's seen a bit of hype about him at the moment as well. Did some nice stuff, kicked a couple of goals in the forward line.
Yeah, he played well. And Sam De Koning's 50-50 to play round one. He's got a bit of a niggle, so keep an eye on him. But yeah, it's small forwards. You know, you're not going to have Charlie Cameron in your team. You're not going to have a Tom Papley fully fit in your team. Why are you going to have Tyson Stengel as a permanent small forward? I just don't see it. And the forward line, I think if you mess up your forward line early, you're probably at more risk of falling behind than you are even a midfield. So yeah, I can't do it.
No, fair enough. Anyone from Richmond you were looking at?
Yeah, Jaden Short is going to be a headache for me all preseason. There's no Basher Hooley. No one else will take kickouts.
No.
And, I can't fit him in. It's one of those that it's shocking to hear, but you kind of hope one of your other premiums goes down just so you can go, bang, he's the ultimate backup. I don't see his price falling in massive ways. Takes kickouts. He's a long kicker. Can go forward. Likes to get on the Joe the Goose from 55 and launch one. Won a best and fairest in a premiership year. Can absolutely do it again. I think I had Dusty down in my best and fairest prediction video, but Jaden Short was the guy I considered. So, yeah, he's not in my team with a lot of dismay.
How many defender primos are you running at the moment?
I'm running 3. So I've got Lloyd Stewart Crisp at the moment with Sicily as my 450 guy I'm predicting will be a keeper.
Okay. So where would you consider Short to be in that list? Like 4, 5, 6 out of the top 8?
Next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I think he probably finishes, if I'm being honest, him and Sicily are 1 and 1A for that 4th spot for mine. Sicily's 80K cheaper.
Yeah, it's just price, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
I know Dusty did quite well, so a few people are jumping on him back again. I think it's a bit of a trap. I'm definitely going to pick up my 450K guys that I'm thinking are going to be keepers instead of Dusty because I've been burned too much with him. Even last year, I think I brought him in round 2 and then he just stunk it for the rest of the season. So, Dusty preseason hype's definitely not working out for me this year.
He averages more against Carlton than he does any other team, and he always plays them round 1. So I understand what you mean by trap. I think if Richmond are going to work on getting themselves back into premiership contention, he needs to have, I'm not saying he has to be 2017 Dusty because that's out of this world.
No.
But if Richmond are in contention around 6, I think we have no choice but to bring him in. If Richmond start the year 2 and 4, I'm wiping him off my list and not picking him up for the rest of the year. So it's a weird one because if there's no possible way Richmond can win the flag without Dusty being an A+ player this year. So if Richmond are in good form, he needs to be in good form, and he doesn't have the right to take it, to not show up against teams like a St Kilda, a GWS, an Essendon, a Carlton, a Freo, a Hawthorn, a North. all these guys that we suspect might be bottom 12 teams. Richmond were one of those bottom 12 teams last year. For them to improve with a fixture that's kind of easy, but not really, he needs to be an A-plus player, which will be a top 6 forward, but you can't start with him unless you're trying to win round 1, in which case put the VC on him.
Definitely. I think rookie-wise, I think Hugo Ralphsmith's making the rounds at the moment, but I think that's probably about it, really.
Yeah, I love everything they did in their draft, but none of them are classic relevant as of this stage. We talked about Tyler Sonzi, but how are you going to get him in that midfield, even with the second string players, Riley Collier, Dawkins, Thompson, Dow, these guys? Judson Clark, I'd love to see him. I was really big on Hawthorn picking him up. I think it was either going to be him or Sam Butler, and we chose Butler, which is great. And from there, Gibkiss is a key back. So if he plays and we're desperate for a key defensive rookie, we might look at him, but I don't think he's in many teams at the moment, and probably rightly so. Yeah, 170 odd K. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's probably us for today. Do you want to just let people know what you've got going on, where to find you on the socials?
Yeah, so I'll put the Twitter link actually in the description, because I kind of had to change Twitter accounts in the last week and a half. And if I give you the old one and I'm not posting anything, people might get upset. So that'll be in the description. Daz Talks Footy on YouTube, which would be fantastic. I am with Talking Hawks as well. So if anyone's viewing and a Hawthorn fan, we've interviewed former Hawthorn players. We've had Denver Granger Barras on. We might have another current player coming on very soon, but I can't tell you who it is. So check that out. So I work with Talking Hawks as well. And that's pretty much it, mate. I'm not one to promote myself on Facebook or anything, but if you do want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at the one named Daz, all one word, and I promote my stuff, talk about footy on there and all those good things. But it's been a pleasure to sit down with you, mate, and hopefully we get to do it again.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the channel. It was really good. Hopefully we can do this soon.
Mate, absolutely. It's been a pleasure, and see you later.
Yeah, bye.